Today we are talking all about miscarriage and loss and stillbirth and really navigating the fertility journey from a spiritual perspective. So we're taking you through an exercise to help you really honor your feelings. And there's a mantra that we'll be giving you to help with that. And also, if you're feeling very anxious, if you're catastrophizing about the future, if you're feeling very controlling about when this will happen for you, if you have experienced loss, you may be worried about the future, and anyone on the fertility journey. So this episode is really to help you acknowledge those feelings and emotions you may be experiencing and how to navigate those using the spiritual guides that are all around you. So excited for you to listen to this episode. Hey, Nichole, excited to have you back on the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
Yes. Okay. So these are some fun topics that we like to go into. Although today's obviously we're talking about miscarriage and grief, so not necessarily obviously a fun topic, but we are going to be talking kind of about sort of the energetics in the world and kind of what we're all kind of feeling right now, and then we'll go into some support around being obviously on the fertility journey, and then if you have experienced stillbirth, miscarriage, loss, and sort of ways to help you move through that journey. Okay, so let's talk about the energy in the world right now. As I was preparing for this, I kind of heard that Mercury was in retrograde, and I think that when we last recorded our last session, that was the same thing. And I was like, literally, before I got on here, I'm like, what was going on? So we're recording this as of September 21st. So this week I was like, I literally, I was this was a Wednesday. So I was out on Monday driving around. I literally had the worst road rage, like horrible road, where I was like, why was this person in front of me going? I know when things are bad, because it'll always for me go into the road rage where I'm like, why are you driving so slowly in front of me? And why won't you get out of my way? And there's like those songs like move, get out the way. That's always been my thing. Like, and even my husband is like, he goes, because my husband I've just discovered, like, I don't know, it's been like years, but I didn't really realize, but having so he has ADHD, and literally I'm like, when he's on the phone, he's like roaming, and or he just like roams and paces. And then I'm like, I'm very focused. I'm like, I'm trying to get somewhere to go wherever I'm going. So I'm like, get out the way. He's like, oh, great. I'm just going to, come and see you and push you out the way. But anyways, that's when I know things are bad. When I'm like, please get out of my way to my husband. I'm like, don't want the cars to get out of the way. So yeah, what's happening in the world right now and what's going on?
First of all, I can't even imagine you having road rage, number one. You're so sweet. So that says a lot. Number two, that song's going to be stuck in my head for the rest of the day. Thank you very much. Yes. I will put it on later after we're done recording and dance to it. Number three, buckle up if you haven't already, because it is intense. And I think it's a great time anyways for things to start darkening, because we're getting into autumn. And when that happens, we're really forced to look at our shadow anyways, which means simply what Mercury is showing us right now anyways, that anything we've kind of stuffed down and perhaps avoided is really coming up to the surface now, whether we like it or not. And when we tend to ignore that coming up for us to heal, it tends to get louder and louder or heavier and heavier, because it needs to be brought to the light. And all I mean by that is it needs acknowledgement, it needs healing, whatever that looks like for you. So if you are struggling with miscarriage currently or very recently, or if you have in your past, some of those feelings might be coming up that are stronger right now, that are wanting to be healed. So that's kind of what this whole Mercury in retrograde is allowing. It can be a positive for sure once you've actually worked through the healing. But it can be really intense during these 3 weeks when Mercury keeps throwing these curveballs at you, and your electronics may not be working, or if your your car might be breaking down. It can be really frustrating in those moments.
Yeah, with the tech piece, I just upgraded my whole website, and the whole bunch of stuff just broke down with it. So we're just in the middle of doing that. But even so I'm like, I was born in August. Like I love summer, and I find myself in this season of September, even though I do like a little cocooning piece, I find myself like holding on to summer like you would not believe. I'm like, oh, the warm days. I better get out for every single one of them because soon I'll be in the depths of the
Mm-hmm.
Canadian winter and that piece. And so I'm holding on, although, and then the next piece I'm like, ooh, apple pie and like Thanksgiving stuff and stuff. But then yesterday it was interesting with the shadow piece. I was doing shadow work and digging into like this. I was interesting exercise. It was like to have someone, they had you in an auditorium and it had they said bring forth the person that's hurt you the most,
Oh,
and then have them say all the most hurtful things that you've ever thought about yourself. And I was like, oh my God, this was like, um, although I did feel better after it because I was feeling very anxious going in, but after that exercise, even though it sounds, quite horrific, and then you journal afterwards. But yeah, because a lot of the times we don't know those things are been playing in our mind for years.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that sounds like such a powerful exercise. I just got so many chills, which is my like confirmation. So I might have to do that later. But I think that that's exactly what Mercury requires of us is to go inside and do our inner work and look at those dark moments. And what you did was exactly what I said. You brought light to those moments and you brought healing and weaved that in. And journaling, as we already know, is so powerful. And that's really what this is really starting to get us geared for and get us ready for, that winter energy, that fall energy of spending more time within yourself. And even here in Florida, because I don't have to deal with the snow, thank goodness,
No.
but it does get colder.
And
But
when you're
really,
100, now it's 80.
exactly. Sometimes when it's 70, I'm so cold because I'm so used to it feeling like 100 degrees. I know you all are laughing if you're like anywhere north of me, but it's true.
And so, yeah, so this episode today is about miscarriage. I have not personally experienced miscarriage, although I have been on the fertility journey and was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency at 28 and had both my kids with donor eggs. So certainly, we can never step into anyone's shoes, but definitely from a fertility standpoint, many people would say that, doing donor eggs would be the absolute last thing they would want to do or ever choose. And that certainly wasn't, when I decided to have my children, that was not how I visualized the whole thing happening.
Mhm.
I was able to reframe it and look at it things in differently. So I wanted to bring this topic because there's a lot of anxiety during the fertility journey, and especially for that. And we'll go into this a little bit later, but like the anxiety of either will it ever work? Our eggs are too old, our time is running out. That's why there's a lot of impatience and frustration, which I experienced that because that was my whole thing, my whole life. I'm trying to work on my patience. So it's a work in progress.
Okay, the road rage makes sense now.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, exactly. Yes. um, and then even if you are pregnant right now, maybe you're having early pregnancy potentially after you're dealing with loss or being on the fertility journey. So how do we access sort of a sense of peace or calm, our spiritual realm when we're feeling anxious during this journey?
So I have experienced miscarriage. So know that anybody who's listening to this, Sarah and I are definitely holding space for you and honoring your experience and your grief and your trauma and your anxiety and your nerves. And you are not alone. I think it's something that we still don't talk about enough in this day and age. So there's a couple things I want to talk about. So Sarah, reel me in if you need to. But when I did have a miscarriage, I remember the first time I got pregnant after, and I remember thinking after I went through that hump of when I lost my first child, that after that, my anxiety was going to go away and that I would feel so much better because I went through the 8 week mark and everything would just be better after that. If I could just go to that 8 week mark. Well, the 8 week mark came and went. And then I was getting new anxiety. I was getting new anxiety about the 12 week mark. And then I was feeling anxious about midway through. It's like all of these anxieties were coming up. And I kept telling myself, I kept trying to give myself control. Well, if you can just make it to this point, it's going to be okay. Oh, my cat just
She's joined
Hi,
us.
Cookie. But the key, one of my first points is you're always going to have the anxiety and the nerves and the overwhelm. So trying to figure out what makes your anxiety lessen, what helps you feel like you have a sense of control over your body, whether you feel physical anxiety, whether it's mostly emotional, however it is that you feel that anxious energy, what can you do to help it dissolve a little bit? And one of my most favorite techniques for that is the 5 finger technique. And I can't remember if I've brought it up with you before in another podcast or not, but you take one of your hands and you think of your top 5 favorite memories. So do this while you're happy. And maybe even right now, you can start thinking about your top 5 favorite memories and assign one to each of your fingers and then really memorize what those memories are. If you need to, put it in your notepad on your phone because you probably have your phone on you all the time. That way you can look back when you have those anxious feelings and thoughts and get it down in your head so that when you have that anxiety, you just start pinching your fingertips and you're going and reliving through all of those memories. And you can redo this cycle over and over and over again until you feel that sense of anxiety has washed through your body. Because even when you are pregnant, even when you do have the baby, oh my gosh, like I stayed up for the first few nights after my first son was born, poking him to make sure he was breathing because my anxiety was so high. And like, I really genuinely, truly was so naive in thinking that if I just made it through that first 8 weeks, I would feel so much better. And that's just not the case. Coming up with those coping skills and mechanisms is really the key to releasing that anxiety. And that's one of my favorite ones to use to break that anxious feeling get it out of my body, honestly.
So I like that. So basically, so each finger you would assign like for me it would be the beach. So you're thinking of your happy memory on the beach. Or
Mhm.
me having like some crazy amount of chocolate, which is not always the best for me. So all like so 5 really good memories on there. And then
Yeah, like, and maybe your marriage, maybe the day that you bought your house, things like that. Maybe even a great memory from your childhood, but things that you can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of joy and happiness. And I don't want you to use these techniques to not feel through your emotions, but this is something that we can use when we are feeling so deep and so dark and so sorrowed that we just really want that relief.
Mhm, mhm.
So I love it for that reason.
Love that. I love that. So let's talk about our timeline. And as like, the type A controlling, let's get her done kind of person. And we work with mostly those types of people, busy professionals that are like, typically have researched and done all kinds of work before, and typically have gone through, probably some failed IVFs or at least tried naturally for 2 years before they come to see us. And, nothing has worked at that point. And then they start working with us. So and so there's our timeline, and then there's the spiritual timeline. Which when I first heard that, like years and years ago, I was like, oh come on, like that sounds insane. Like
Awful,
my timeline is the one.
right?
So let's discuss that.
You all get on board with mine. I think I am a control freak, and so I really like for things to happen in my timeline as well. And I'm also not patient when it comes to things like that, especially when it comes to having a family and manifesting health and in the way that you see it, right? But the more and more that I've stressed myself out unnecessarily and then looked back and thought, if I would have just held on to maybe a little bit of a hope, a glimmer, a little bit of faith, instead of stressing myself out so much, I would have made it such an easier experience for me. So that's one of the first things that I want to bring up is you have the choice, and the choice is remembering to hold on to that faith and that trust, and remembering that perhaps you don't know everything that you think that you do. meaning you don't know everything that life has in store for you. You don't know everything that your baby's life has in store for them. You don't know your partner, what they have in store. So sometimes things, majority of the time, things work out for the best in the timeline that the universe has. And in those moments, I know that it's really, really hard to hold on to that trust and faith. But when I feel really frustrated and I'm feeling like I can't hold on to that trust and faith, I know that I have to go back and ground myself and plug into Mother Nature. I have to ground myself again. I have to go through a visualization of bringing my roots down all the way to the core of the earth. I have to connect with that nurturing, mothering energy. And for me, when I do that, I feel nurtured and cradled by Mother Nature. I feel safe and secure. I feel like I'm not alone anymore. And I feel that divine connection once again. So that's my biggest piece of advice is taking that time to reconnect with the earth, taking that time maybe even to reconnect with your faith, maybe both of those possibilities, and using your support team. Who is it that you can go to that is going to brighten your day and give you that big dose of spiritual medicine and hope, you know?
Yeah, because the pushing forward, although it can be a strength, right? Then it becomes that you're just not coping that well. And I like for me, it would come out in like anger and
Mm,
frustration, and then the impatience would get really high, right? Because you want things to come on your timeline, and especially dealing on the fertility journey, like so much of it is really out of our control, right? We can only really, work on ourselves and work on our health, um, it really that's why we call it the fertility journey. It is a journey of understanding, like healing and self-care and really focusing on yourself. And it's interesting when I did that exercise with what people had kind of said to me. It came up, I'm like selfish, and I was like, well shit, where the heck did that come from? Because I'm always like, oh, I
mm,
do say me first, but I'm like, I believe me first so I can serve others if I'm in a bad place. But I'm
mhm.
like, that selfish piece, right? When we take time, we say no, we set our boundaries, and but there could be some, the shadow parts of us could be coming out around that, kind of going, well, who are you to work on yourself? Who are you to
Exactly.
connect to nature?
And I think especially with infertility and with miscarriage, we don't talk about it. So there's this huge amount of guilt and shame, and we turn that in on ourselves, especially as women, because we're not talking about it. And we're not, it's really hard to talk about it. And I understand that. But what happens is when we don't talk about it, we keep it closed within ourselves. That's when more of that unbalance and dis-ease starts to creep into our physical body, into our emotional body, our spiritual body. So I really want to give that permission that when you aren't feeling bright and cheery, it's okay to speak about it. It's okay to go to your support network. It's okay to honor those feelings and give them a voice so that it doesn't come out just like what you and I are very similar. Mine will come out in anger for sure. My husband would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
But it's like if I don't honor those feelings in the moment when they happen, that's how it's going to come out later. And so it is okay to share how you're feeling when it's not bright and cheery. It's okay to give that time and space.
And then I was listening to Gabrielle, is it Gabriella Bernstein? No, it's Gabrielle Bernstein. Goodness, I had a brain thing there. Gabrielle Bernstein, and she was talking about radical surrender, which actually, and she was talking about actually starts at the moment of conception, to really,
Wow.
yeah, to let go. The moment of you find out you're pregnant, or as you are even on the fertility journey, it's because I do believe the moment you start trying to conceive, you already are a parent or a mother or a father. And so, and then that radical surrender from when they're children to babies, children when they're in college to adulthood, all of it, you really can't control any of it. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you might feel like you are with all these things that you end up doing. I look back, I'm like, what was I doing with all this stuff that I was trying to do? That's just
Uh-huh.
how I how I make myself feel busy and do things. But so that radical surrender, can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one thing that's actually really coming to my mind right now is radical surrendering in your bed. And what I mean by that is laying down, breathing deeply in and out. And perhaps maybe for the first few breaths, doing a 4, 7, 8 breath. And that's where you breathe in to the count of 4, you hold it to the count of 7, and then you breathe out through your mouth to the count of 8. So if you do that for a minute or two, you can really start to relax your body and then ask yourself to radically surrender into your bed. And what I mean by that is letting go of the tension in your body. That breathing is going to help you do that. Laying in your bed, you're going to be comforted and surrounded. And sometimes it feels really nice to have a heating pad on you, or maybe even a weighted blanket, to really feel that nurture and that nurturing loving kindness for yourself, so that you feel like you can actually radically surrender. I'm a very physical person and a very visual person. So I need a lot of that comfort to really allow myself to begin to actually surrender and let go of that heaviness, and just let it drain and dissolve out and peel out of my body.
Yeah, anytime anyone ever says like, "Oh, you can let it go," I literally like saw myself on the bed, just like sinking right into the bed, like starfishing on the bed.
Yeah, and when
Sinking right.
people are just like, "Oh, no, just let it go," like, they act like it's so easy, I feel like I tense more, and then I hold on to more because I'm like, no, it's
Yeah,
not easy to let go." But I
yeah.
need something like a grand, like that bed exercise, to really let go and allow myself for however long, maybe even the entire night that you're sleeping, to just let go and start radically surrendering. And when we're asleep, our ego is also asleep. Our subconscious rises. So I like to do this before I go to bed. And then I like to cocoon myself in Reiki or in light or whatever you believe in. Ask yourself and your higher powers to just cocoon you in that beautiful love while you sleep, so that you can surrender. If that's all you can do is surrender while you sleep, that's a great start. And that's going to start you in your waking hours to be able to know what that feeling feels like, because your body is already starting to train in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just in this time of year because I'm like, I saw my Epsom salts sitting there. I'm like, oh, it's time for a bath. And I was like, oh, I haven't done the castor oil in a while. Like some of those self-care things that I feel I don't do a lot of that stuff during the summer just because I'm happier typically in the summer because I'm not that I'm unhappy the rest of the time, but I just love the summer. So I'm usually outside
Yeah.
enjoying myself.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, and I find those other, like the castor oil, the Epsom salts, all those kind of essential oils, all those different practices, I bring them back more into the fall and they kind of keep me, yeah, that grounded piece. Cause probably with the summer, I'm outside being grounded because I'm in nature.
Yeah, exactly. And I call a lot of that spiritual medicine. So take your doses of your spiritual medicine as you can, and increase your dosage if you need to, but
Yeah.
especially, I'm with you. I do the same thing during fall and winter because I need that support while I'm going through my inner work. Because astrologically speaking, that's what fall and winter is right now. It's really a time for us to go through that inner work and go through those shadows. So releasing it with the help of other things is helpful because you're able to release more. It's not all just you.
Hmm. And so, and we talked a little bit about this, about the fertility journey can really help us like face our control and our timeline. So let's talk about that kind of with, so someone on the fertility journey and someone who's gone through miscarriage or loss, stillbirth, like how do we, with that fear of the future, perhaps, because we, a lot of it, when we, most people, instead of, ruminating about the past, we're catastrophizing about the future, that, oh damn, like this
Mhm.
is never going to work, or it's going to happen again, or that catastrophizing. So how do we, um yeah, how does the journey help us face all these different, I guess, the shadow work that we've experienced, that we're
Yeah.
going through?
Well, Sarah, I'm going to record, by the time you put out the podcast, I'm going to record a Reiki infused grief relief meditation. In that, it's going to be all about miscarriage and how you can feel through those dark moments and then really start slowly returning to light. And I think one of the things that I really learned the hard way as a parent was that feeling is always going to continue to return, of me being worried and me not being able to control my child's environment, especially when they're not within my presence. And so again, kind of saying what I just said a few minutes ago, learning how you can best ensure that you are okay as a human, as a mama, as a daddy, how you are okay within yourself, and having to be okay with letting go of that control, that we can't control the timeline. We can't control when our child does come. And then when that child comes, what it is that they're doing, the choices that they're making, who they're hanging out with at school. And my kids aren't teenagers yet. I know that yours are and have been, but I can't imagine, like, I know I'm going to have to really deeply return to letting go of that control during those teenage years and the college years. But it's really a beautiful opportunity right now to really take a step back and lean into yourself, lean into your heart. Your inner navigation system there is what I love to call the heart system, and fall back on what is it that I can do that gives me relief? What can I do that gives me that faith? What is it that I can do that gives me that trust? The grounding exercises for me is important. The spiritual medicine for me is important. The support system is important. And through that guided meditation that I'm going to have on my playlist, you'll be able to feel those negative emotions. And I think that's something that, again, we've talked about, and I just can't stop preaching about it enough. We don't make space enough for that in this day and age. But I really think it's important for you to be able to do that in a safe way so that you feel validated in your feelings, so that you're honoring yourself, so that you can feel sorrow and joy, and really be able to embody and express how it is that you feel all the time in that moment.
Mhm. It's back to the teenage years for my kids were an absolute exercise in me giving over all power and control.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my
And
husband just sneezed.
bless him. But yeah, it was literally and they're still, well, but they're coming out of it. My son's 18 and my daughter is almost 21. So, but yeah, definitely during those periods of time, I was not able to do all the things I wanted to have happen didn't happen at all. So,
And but you know what, Sarah? I think also, as soon as you were just saying that, I don't mean to cut you off, but the more that we can work on honoring those feelings as they come up and kind of letting go of that control, the more you're putting on that example for your child, that example for your family. You're the leader, right? So when you're able to express that and show it, much more beautiful and easier it is in the future. And when you model that, it's easier for everybody in your family to model the same thing.
I agree because I see like if the tighter I hold on to, and that's just not how I want to parent. Like I don't want. I'm like we go out there, we explore, we do our own thing, and there's going to be consequences for you exploring and doing your own thing. And we're here to be, to consult with you and but we're not here to stop you from doing things. Like, well, obviously certain things, I'm more like more, well, I guess, open minded about that kind of stuff where other people be like, no, we got to have these strict, restrictions or
Yeah.
yeah, like that's not how I parent. But with that came some shit. I got to tell you, but I wouldn't change it though. So
Exactly.
yeah. So okay, so how do we and we're gonna be going into a little exercise here. But is there anything else you wanted to say about viewing miscarriage from a spiritual perspective? How can we view that?
Like I said before, I definitely have experienced it a couple of times. And so each time it's brought its own lessons. And I do not want people to think, oh my God, now I have to learn a lesson from this. What is the lesson in this? But eventually you do reach a point where you are able to see, sense, feel, know, whatever that is for you, what the lesson in that is for yourself, for your family, how it is that you can learn from that. And if you're like me, a part of that lesson was learning how to feel joy and sorrow at the same time. It was learning how to honor my feelings when they came up so that I wasn't triggered in the future. And of course, as someone who really loves control, when you're triggered into your sadness and you're in a public setting and you want to go cry or scream and yell, it doesn't feel very good. And so learning through that was a huge lesson. That being feeling my emotions when they come up and not stuffing them down so that I don't have to go through those moments later where I have that extreme trigger and then all the things just come out, which Mercury in retrograde is so wonderful at providing those opportunities.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know? So finding those lessons in those pains, finding the spiritual lesson, that's like the number one thing I can tell you right now.
And what about I am like for lately it's like anytime some sort of little animal crosses my path, I'm like, what's the spiritual
Yes,
symbolism for this? And so because
that
I think that's happening a lot, right? For people. We don't recognize it. So how do we yeah, how does that play into things?
synchronicities I think are beautiful, like the animals. So it's so funny. Somebody just posted on Facebook that they kept having a cat show up and they're like, what does this mean? And somebody answered back, good luck. It means good luck. And today I just saw one outside of my window and I was like, ooh, I got good luck. But it's like seeing those things and all of those synchronicities. So whether it's animals, whether it's repeated numbers that you're seeing, whether you're waking up at the same time every night, or you just happen to look at the clock at the same
Mm,
time every night, looking up the numerology behind it. Maybe you're finding black or white feathers, looking up what it means to find a feather. You know, black usually means protection, white means that your angels are trying to communicate with
mm,
you. So, finding and seeing those synchronicities and reminding yourself of that inner gratitude, reminding yourself of that joy, reminding yourself of that light.
Yeah, I love that with the for me it is the animals, but it's become a little bit insane lately because now my kids are like, oh, stop looking up the symbolism of that. It's like there
It's
should
okay.
be
I fully support that part of you, Sarah.
there you go. Okay, and then about the baby's soul being on its own journey and the womb being the vessel, which maybe so yeah, what's your take on that if someone is maybe having a hard time that's not quite landing for them?
Yeah. So on that Spirit Baby communication playlist on YouTube, I do have a Spirit Baby communication meditation, and so that's where I'm going to start. Is you have the power to talk to your spirit babies. You have that ability. You can use that meditation over and over and over again to start getting your own sense of comfort, to start getting your own sense of understanding maybe what your baby is going through. And you can do this meditation, like I said, many, many times. Now, when you do it in the beginning, if you don't hear anything, if you don't see anything, if you don't sense something, continue to do it. Continue to make a relationship with your spirit baby. And in turn, you can also continue to make a relationship with your own womb. And that looks like maybe doing the womb wellness meditation on that playlist. It looks like maybe putting your hands on your womb and speaking loving words out loud to your womb. Maybe it looks like rubbing some clary sage on it, or I have a bunch of little roller balls of hormone support for the womb. So I'll rub that on there. And then I like to put a little rice pack on and just put my hands there and speak lovingly to my womb. So creating those kind of sacred rituals or ceremonies, if you will, to cleanse your womb, but also to communicate to your spirit baby. You are 100% capable of doing that. Any human being on this planet can do that. So when you're perhaps maybe feeling like the connection for you is not there, or maybe that just seems a little outlandish to you, I would really encourage you to try it and see what happens. And maybe if the spirit baby communication is outside of your realm of comfort, perhaps maybe just putting your hands on your womb and deeply loving it and sending it your own love so that you can start energetically cleansing that space and making a beautiful vessel for your future.
I love that. On the Fab Fertile blog, we have there's a little mixture for the essential oils where it's lavender, geranium, the clary sage, rose, and then you mix those together and then you can rub that on your abdomen. So you just go to fabfertile.com and check out essential oil mixture. So yeah.
That exactly right there. Yep.
Mhm. So let's talk about you're going to run us through a ceremony to commemorate the child that's been lost.
Yes. So this is something that I've done. It's clear probably by now to your audience that I'm a very visual person. And so I need to be able to speak my feelings, but I also need to be able to have them around me and do something with visuals to allow myself to express, basically. And one of the first things that I really feel is a comfort for me is lighting a candle, and this can be a special candle. You can choose to do this first part every day for weeks. You can choose to do it whenever you feel overwhelmed. You can choose to only do it once. You have the complete freedom and control of when you do this, but this first part, all you're doing is just lighting a candle, and you're saying my grief flows through me and out of me. And it's very much an energetic exercise in which you can send that candle all of your grief, your pain, your sorrow. If you want to, you can get a candle that has glass around it so that you can place your hands on it and you can truly feel into that candle and give it everything that you've got. You can look instead, if you want to, if you don't have a glass around it, you can look into the flame and imagine that that flame is dissolving that grief. It's dissolving that anxiety. It's dissolving that worry. It's dissolving that pain. You can do that, like I said, as often as you wish, or you could just do it as a part of this one time ceremony. So you want to start off with that candle, say, my grief flows through me and out of me. And you'll want to gather something else. Maybe you want to start writing a letter about how you feel. Maybe you want to write, and anything that comes to mind, how it felt for you, what that experience was for you. If you're angry, why you're angry, how you're angry, where it feels in your body, perhaps what you were wishing for, what you wanted to happen. Write it all down, get some flowers, and then bury this in your yard. And if this doesn't feel good to you to bury it in your yard, you can, or even if you live in the city and you don't have a yard, you can go to the beach if you happen to live by the beach. You can go to the woods and you can bury it. As long as you're burying things, of course, that aren't detrimental to the environment. If you live by the beach, you can bury it at the beach, or you can even let your flowers go out in the water into the ocean. You can give your feelings to the flowers just like you can give your feelings to the candles. You can honestly even give your feelings to the seashells. And throw them back into the ocean. But some type of physical item like this that you're either going to bury or give back to the sea, you're giving it back to Mother Nature. You're giving it back to Gaia. You're giving it back to the mother of all mothers, right? So this is a very nurturing, very honoring process. And you can choose after you've buried this to return to doing that candle work every night. You can choose to not return back to the candle work. You can choose to keep the candle just in case you want to do it again any other time in the future. But starting out with lighting that candle and taking as much time as you want to give that candle everything that you've got negative, your anger, your grief, your worry, your sorrows, your future plans. Funnel it all into the candle, give it all to the flame, and then allow yourself to go through burying that letter, burying flowers. If it feels good to you, maybe you also like crystals, you can bury a few crystals, maybe some clear quartz, maybe some black tourmaline to help you feel protected and safe in the future. Anything like that, but just allowing yourself to kind of close that chapter in a metaphysical, spiritual way so that you can feel like you've honored yourself, you've honored the baby, you've honored and validated those feelings and sadness that came along that entire journey. These rituals and ceremonies are really good for that. It's honoring and it's expressing.
Yeah, I love that. And just my logical brain is like, so how long would you sort of, when you're doing the candle work, is there like just when you just feel like you're empty, or like what's your?
Yes, when you feel empty. For me, that usually takes, it depends on honestly also how much patience I have in the moment. But because I use this candle work is what it's called. I use this candle work anytime that I have a lot of heaviness that I'm having trouble letting go of. And so typically that looks anywhere for me, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. If I'm really having a bad day, it's going to be a longer time and I'm going to have a bigger candle. But those big taper candles are really great for this type of exercise because you can just really see all of the beautiful waxwork melting. You can see the flame so easily. You can really see the change, the candle changing from being so tall to beginning getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so perhaps if it is a big thing like miscarriage, maybe you want to get a medium-sized taper candle so that you can watch that entire candle burn down. And as you feel that burning down, I hope that you're also feeling your emotions be released more and more and more. But certainly, even 10 minutes is enough.
And I've also heard people when they do the journaling, then they can burn the paper.
I love doing that.
Yeah. But would you still need to like bury it then, or how would that work?
You have so many options. So you can either burn the letter, your feelings, whatever it is, and then you can choose to get those not embers, but the leftover residue, and you can choose to bury that if you want. You can choose to take that to the ocean and give it back to the sea. You can take it with you in the forest and sprinkle it along in the forest, or you can flush it down your toilet. Honestly, if it's little enough, sometimes I like to flush it down the toilet. It feels really good to watch it go down the drain. I'm sure that's probably not the best, but I'm just going to be honest. It feels really good to watch it go down the drain.
I love it. I love that that ceremony. Definitely. You can re-listen to this again if someone needs to have some prompts on that to go through it. Can you just say the mantra again for us?
Yes. My grief flows through me and out of me.
Great. And so when we're together, we usually pull some cards. So can we pull some cards together? Okay, good. What do we have?
I got them ready, and I was so excited. I love pulling cards anyways, but I almost cried when I pulled both of these. So bear with me because I am going to read the description of at least the first one because the words are so beautiful and I can't replicate that. So the first one is rain, which says purification. And so it is all about purifying your mind, body, and spirit is the task that is put before you. So we're at a great time for this card, Sarah. Purify your mind by identifying a prominent belief you carry about yourself that inhibits you from being fully engaged in life, from showing up 100% of the time. Purify your heart by allowing yourself to breathe in and out blessings and forgiveness so that you can love even more deeply. Let yourself feel your grief. Truly feel it so that the rivers of your tears become miniature baptisms that help heal the wounds in your soul. If necessary, detoxify your body by changing your diet, doing a cleanse for a few days, or simply drinking more water. Increasing the daily amount of water you drink with deep appreciation for its purpose will revitalize your spirit. It's no wonder that in some indigenous languages, water is called lifeblood, as it is so essential to every form of life on earth. Take time to purify yourself. So I'm going to read a part of this again, Sarah, because I just feel like it's so profound. Let yourself feel your grief. Truly feel it so that the rivers of your tears become miniature baptisms that help heal the wounds in your soul. I feel like that pretty much summarizes our podcast episode here.
It really does. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, and so that's the first card that came up. And then I pulled another card, and the other card is dance and celebration. So how perfect is that? So we have to give time to that purification. We have to allow that grief and that sorrow to come out, and then we can dance and celebrate. My cat just meowed, so she agreed.
She's down for that.
She's here for this. Okay, so this one, the dance one says, the sacredness of any celebration is dependent upon the quality of spirit that is present. The quality of spirit is greater to the degree that you are fully present with minimal inhibitions about expressing your joy and happiness through physical movement. Focus on what you want to celebrate. Put on some music and dance, whether slow or fast. Sing a song while you do so. Make one up about what you most have to celebrate. God's wish is for everyone to enjoy their time on earth, and part of that wish is to celebrate your capacity to be joyous and express it through your body. Whether in private with a small group of friends or a large communal gathering, let music, song, and dance be a part of your sacred ceremony, regardless of what it is that you're celebrating. For truly, any celebration is sacred. I think those two have just such beauty and power in their messages and speak so deeply to this journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The lows and the highs and the, yeah.
Exactly. And remembering to celebrate the highs and remembering to honor the lows.
I love that. Great. And okay, so you've got the Reiki infused grief relief meditation. We'll have the link in the show notes, and then also your channel, Spirit Baby Communication. We'll have that link in there too. And any final thoughts today, Nichole, on our chat?
I think that's it. I'm just holding space and sending all of you love and light.
Beautiful. Thank you.